Hello and welcome to the Somatic Movement and Mindset podcast with me, clinical somatic educator and founder of Total Somatics, Heidi Hadley. The Somatic Movement and Mindset podcast has been designed to help you gain a deeper understanding to how your mind and body work. You will learn about your amazing mind and body and why over time you can feel pain, recurring injuries and poor posture. Within this podcast, I will teach you why this doesn't have to be your future or the norm for you. Would you like to learn how to reduce pain, move freely, and gain a new lease of life? Let's get started. Hello and welcome back. Now, if you've been joining me in Somatic in September here in 2022, it's been absolutely wonderful because I've heard so many fantastic results, the feedback. It's really made some huge shifts and changes for people. And it's really deepened their internal awareness and basically then been able to apply skills and techniques within the Release Tight Hips and Back series that they've not only just learned on the floor, but things that they've taken to different positions like standing and sitting and how they can adapt that in their daily lives. So it's actually really exciting to hear what people have been doing and implementing already. But it's not too late. If you want to join us for the final week, you are more than welcome. Because don't forget, if you can't watch this live, you can receive the replay links and you have the opportunity to actually download those 4 replay links and then add them to the collection of the digital course Release Tight Hips and Back. So if you would like to join, if you go to totalsomatics.com, click on the shop page, and then the very first course that you'll see is the digital course that says Release Tight Hips and Back with Clinical Somatic Movement. And if you purchase that, you automatically get invited into Somatic in September. And so the purpose of that is the people that have invested that time and energy and that commitment into that digital program is actually going to help to accelerate their health and well-being long term. But not only that, they keep that digital program permanently, plus the download links will be available to the end of September 2022. So do come along and join us. You are more than welcome. Okay, now, one thing that we're going to be covering in this final week within Somatic in September is how really our subconscious and our patterns of thought and behavior and our inner talk, our belief systems, they really do shape how we move, how we stand, how we interact, and basically the actions of our nervous system. And so if you are in Somatic in September and you're joining me with this Release Tight Hips and Back series, you will see how I'm going to delve into how we can develop a deeper understanding of how your subconscious mind is behaving and how that's patterning behavior, movement, pain perception, and everything else throughout your day. But today, let's just take a little snippet of what I'm going to be teaching you. And that is that there is huge amount of science behind emotions and thoughts. And one of my favorite people is the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. Now, he's got this quote, which I've got here in my clinic. I've got it laminated in the kitchen because it's such a powerful, thought-provoking quote. And he says, it all begins with how you choose to think. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So if you just consider that expression for a moment, it's really important. So we're going to consider how that applies today. But also, if you haven't checked the previous episode, so the episode before this, please check that out, because in that episode, I talk about perception and mindset. And so today's episode and last week's episode actually marry up quite well too. So did you know that you can be your own worst enemy? Did you know that your self-criticism or that lack of kindness that you give to yourself can actually really start to create big imprints and impacts within your body? Because the reason is that we can live in this cycle of negativity. You see, if we live in this cycle and this habit of negativity, your brain starts to think this is normal. So your structures and your physiology and the actions and the neural connections and the hormone secretions, they will start to create a new environment, and it will change the state of your nervous system, and it creates this negativity state within your nervous system. And of course, that will have a negative impact on your overall soma. Because remember that your brain has been designed to protect you from danger. And so we naturally respond and we perceive negative events and stimuli much more rapidly compared to happy ones, because that's how we're designed. In service of survival, we are looking at how we can take care and protect ourselves. And so likewise, upsetting and painful experiences really will overpower and have a stronger effect on our soma than a happy, pleasurable event. And also, an unpleasant experience creates a greater intensity in brain power compared to a pleasant one. So this is all quite interesting, but why is this the case? Well, it's because your amazing brain has got some incredible properties to it. And what we want to do is understand what they are, but then also understand how we can harness and regulate and take care and change the actions within your brain and your nervous system as a whole. So within the center of your brain, there are three crucial components. And what they do is they create or cause this intensity in this response. So we've got the amygdala, we've got the hippocampus, and the hypothalamus. Now, the amygdala, it is activated by negative events. And so this can also, let's consider a real life scenario, a very common scenario that many people will encounter. And it could be that a person has deeply hurt you, they've cut you deep, and it could be their behavior, it could be the way they've talked to you, or the way they've talked about you to other people. And it hits things such as your self-worth. It really gets quite deep in there. And so what's happening here is there's some really incredible things happening within your brain center. So first of all, the fight or flight stress response will kick off, and that involves this alarm bell response from your amygdala. And what your amygdala will do is it's going to send then a response to your hypothalamus. And then your hypothalamus is going to stimulate something called it's going to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is the part that speeds up, it creates more of that racing heartbeat, and breathing increases or becomes quite dysfunctional. And again, what is happening here is it's all originating from your brainstem, which is the subconscious part of your brain. And so if we consider here that your hypothalamus is then sending out this urgent call, and it's releasing stress hormones, which is part of that whole sympathetic nervous system. And what that is then starting to do, as I said, is it's going to increase your heart rate. It's going to make your thoughts race. It's going to start to make you feel quite unsettled, or it might feel rattled or a bit anxious, or you've got those butterflies and you're just not feeling great at all. And then when you feel that physiological response, what we're then starting to experience is that the hippocampus kicks in here. And it gets involved because what it's doing is it's creating this initial neural trace. And when I say a neural trace, I mean a neural trace of events. So it's this sequential formation of events that are happening. And it's basically things such as who said what, how they said it, how you felt, who else got involved. And it creates a photocopy of memories so that basically you can learn from that event. And so if we then consider this response, it is really quite common, isn't it, in society? And because it's very common, it means that we're allowing our amygdala to be a very dominant behavioral pattern, or should I say your amygdala is a very dominant actions within your lifestyle, really. It's becoming involved in our thought patterns. And if it becomes really overactive, what it's going to start to do is create this reactive behavior within us, because we have these busy lives, don't we? We try and fill everything into our lives, and it really means that we don't have a lot of time to actually relax and recuperate and recalibrate. And so sometimes this can be through learned behavior. There can be a deeper meaning underneath. It could be that we want to stay busy because there's sadness. There are things that have happened in our past, and we just want to push those feelings and that emotion and those sensations down, because we think if we keep busy, we don't have to then deal with that issue. And yet we know underneath, this stress pattern continues to bubble away. And if we keep pushing it down, the results mean that we get highly stressed, We get incredibly impulsive with our behaviors and our speech and our actions. We get very highly strung. We overreact to the slightest thing or the slightest facial expression. We ignore pain and sensation that's coming from our body, because we might say things like, I haven't got time to be ill. I haven't got time to be self-indulgent and take time out of my time. You know, I've got to do this. I've got to attend to this. I've got to see this person. And all of that means the focus is elsewhere, but we're not actually taking care and noticing how can we look after ourselves? Because when we take care of ourselves, we've got so much more to give to everybody else. And what's more important is when we give more time to ourselves, we regulate, we reset, and we recalibrate our nervous system. And that starts to quieten down the actions of the amygdala, which then has a direct effect with the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. And so if we don't take notice of this, our inflammation levels will increase. We start to find that we've got a highly sensitized nervous system, which is going to impact on our muscles, for instance. And we might find that we get a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. And then we may find that we start to crash and burn. We're really starting to fatigue very quickly. We're getting a lot of symptoms which have always been there, but because we've pushed them down and ignored them, those symptoms and those pains have got greater and greater, to the point that it actually says, hey, stop. You've really got to slow down here, because you are going to sort of crash and burn, or there could be other chronic illnesses that can occur. And so consider what that's actually doing is that if we don't take notice and we don't become mindful of the way that we're behaving, we basically live in a figurative hamster's wheel, don't we? We're going round and round and round. We're not actually getting anywhere. We're just burning ourselves out. And so if we consider here that this is really where there's other factors involved as well. So if we've had a situation whereby we've reacted in a certain way, it could be that we're needing to address things such as our self-worth. And instead of allowing somebody to relive those comments and the behaviors and the actions that somebody said to them, instead of just reliving that, maybe we need to look inward and see what we can do to actually reset, recalibrate, and look at how we can just change our mindset and work on our self-worth, have a self-care routine. Because remember, if we're just reliving things over and over again, naturally, and it always happens, that's human nature, is the things that we relive get embellished. They get greater. There's more exaggerations to the thoughts and the feelings. So from the initial issue that happened to what you're feeling and imagining now is very, very different. So instead of reliving that event, which has been embellished and built on over the time, let's stop and come back to ourselves, because that's often the issue, is we need to address our own self rather than looking and thinking it's other people's issues, when it's often to do with the state of our nervous system and how we're interacting with people. And I say that because it's really important that we identify the reason for this, because it's a learned behavior. And it's not the first time that people may have had this sort of interaction with someone. There are similar triggers over their lifespan where they may have responded in the same way. And there's a learned behavior of keeping busy, pushing things down, reacting and responding in certain ways. And so can you see that unless we become mindful and notice that, is there a pattern of behavior, which is having then a pattern and sequence of events within our nervous system, which is really quite exhausting us emotionally, mentally, physically, and energetically, can we just pause and take time to actually do some work on ourselves and look at how we can reset our nervous system? You see, because we can help break this cycle by focusing on our mindset and creating strategies to actually change our nervous system from what we've basically created and reacted to over the years. And within Total Somatics, that's something we look at these regulation strategies of how we can shift and move away from a pattern of behavior that we've had for a long time. It could be a cultural thing, it could be the way we were raised. Whatever the situation, we can change. And so let us consider how we want to be mindful rather than mindless. Because when we're mindless, we're actually allowing the amygdala to be constantly activated. And that means it's ensuring that the hippocampus continues to hold this storage bank of information. And so what it's then doing is it's creating these new neural circuits. And then as a result, the amygdala becomes a dominant role in our daily life, because it then adds to this circle of fear and anxiety, because we are living mindlessly. We're allowing these fear and stress responses within the center of our brain, these subconscious actions, to really take over a lot of our life. You see, if we repeat the same thought of disappointment over and over and over again, we're basically repeating this stamping of its motor power into our tissues of our body, until the point that we sink into this sort of sadness and this loneliness and this hopelessness. This is feelings and expressions and sensations that we don't want to feel. But you know, when we repeatedly think of thoughts or memories that create hurt and anger or despair or fear within us, we are basically physically injuring ourselves. And that's going to impact our overall well-being right down to a cellular level. And so somatic awareness of oneself really is allowing us to understand what's happening, why our thoughts and our cultures and basically our way of life is affecting us. And so what we would want to do if we're looking at how to live somatically is notice how these lifestyle choices and basically how we're who we mix with, what we read, how we consume food or drink, all of these choices we make in our life, are they supporting us emotionally, mentally, physically, and energetically? Because we may not be able to change our culture, or we might not be able to change our job, but what we can do is we can actually change the way that we process experiences. And we can do that when we start to live more mindfully rather than mindlessly. And so that's why I'd love to invite you to join us for the final week of the Total Somatics Somatic in September series for 2022. And the theme this year has been to release tight hips and back with clinical somatic movement. And so each week we've looked at different ways that we can soften and release tension, and understanding the theory behind that practice. And added to that, I've also created bonuses and additional techniques that you can take off the floor into your daily activities. So I'd love you to join. And if you listen to this after the end of September 2022, there's not a problem, because I'd love to invite you to join me in the Total Somatics membership with people all around the world. And it's a beautiful community. So if you go to totalsomatics.com, click on the Join Now page, and then you can leave your details there on the wait list. However, if you click on that Join Now page and the membership doors are open, please come and join. They only open a few days, different times throughout the year, because the rest of the time I'm fully focused on taking care of the members and helping them get the results that they need. So I'd love you to join. So until next time, all my love and best wishes. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and also forward this on to somebody you know will benefit. To learn more about pain relief, plus how to improve your health and well-being, go to totalsomatics.com. Until next time, take care.